White House that will, in a couple of hours from now, be the scene of another critical meeting on the situation in Ukraine. After hosting President Putin on Friday in Alaska, Trump will sit down with Volodymyr Zelenskyy as well as European leaders to discuss a way out of the war. Zelenskyy is in D.C., and he's going to be joined by the president of the EU, the Secretary General of NATO, as well as the leaders of France, Germany, Italy, the UK, and Finland. Ahead of the meeting, Trump says Zelenskyy must agree to some of Russia's conditions, including that Ukraine cede Crimea and to agree to never join NATO. I want to bring in George Beebe now, former director of Russia analysis for the CIA. Good morning, George. So glad that you could be with us.
Good morning. Thank you.
What are you watching for from this meeting today between Zelenskyy, who, as we're saying, has backup now with these European leaders behind him, and Donald Trump, given what we saw or didn't see happen on Friday in Alaska?
Well, I think the fact of this meeting today is an indication that a lot of progress was made in Alaska, that the Russians showed real willingness to compromise on some things that matter to the West and matter to Ukraine. Now, Russia got some things in return. Most certainly, I think the biggest thing they got was some assurances that Ukraine is not going to be a part of NATO, that the United States is going to close the door on that. And that's something that really is a prerogative of the United States and existing NATO members. It's not something that Ukraine gets to dictate. They can apply for membership there, but they don't make the decisions to whether they will join or not. But I think the question today is going to be, what kind of security assurances will a peace deal include that Ukraine can count on so that it's confident that a new invasion is not going to happen? That, I think, is going to be the focus today. And I think there are some prospects that the Ukrainians can get the kind of assurances that they need. We'll see how this goes.
Well, that's part of it. And the other part is Trump coming away from the meeting on Friday and taking to social media over the weekend, saying that Ukraine must be prepared to give up some territory, something that he had been rather ambiguous about in the days leading up to the summit. I'm going to read it out. President Zelenskyy of Ukraine can end the war with Russia almost immediately if he wants to, or can continue to fight. What's your take on that, and how much Ukraine should be prepared to give up?
Well, the question here is not whether Ukraine is going to give up land or not. They've already lost to the Russians militarily. That's right. They can't take back the territory that the Russians hold militarily. They've already tried to do that. They launched this counteroffensive in 2023 to take back this land, to drive the Russians off of Ukrainian territory, and it utterly failed. And they've lost ground ever since then. And it's very likely that they will continue to lose ground at an accelerating rate if they continue to fight this war. The real question is, can they find a face-saving way to recognize the reality that they're not going to recover this land on the battlefield? What can they do at the negotiating table that ends this war? And it doesn't necessarily mean they have to legally recognize that this territory occupied by Russia is part of the Russian Federation. They may well be able to compromise in ways that recognize that this is an issue that will have to be settled politically, not militarily. And I think that's the thing we should be looking for today.
Are you hopeful that something tangible will come out of the meeting today? And what are your thoughts on Zelenskyy now being joined by European leaders and the head of NATO in the EU?
Well, I am hopeful that something significant will come out of the meeting today. I doubt this will be a final peace deal, but I think they can probably codify a framework agreement sometime soon that commits all the sides to some principles about what the ultimate peace deal is going to look like. There will still be more negotiating that has to be done. There's going to have to be a translation of principles into treaty language. That is going to take a while and will not be an easy process. But I expect we're going to come out of today's meetings with some significant progress toward an ultimate peace treaty.
George Beebe is a former director of Russia analysis for the CIA.